Okay, so my 1984 Strat-O-Matic season with the New York Yankees is over. Just completed playing the season a few days ago and wanted to share with you my results from the full season. First off, let's take a look at my overall record playing with the 84 Yanks. You may remember my season preview video. I was hoping to get the team over 90 wins. I thought they would win about maybe 90, 91, maybe 92 games tops. And I did not get there as I finished with a record of 89 and 73, still 2 games ahead of the actual 1984 results for the New York Yankees. I'll get more into later on in the video as far as the teams that I had a lot of trouble playing. But first, I want to highlight a couple of guys who really had really big seasons for me. Ray Fontenot, in my season preview video, I was really raving about how good his card came out, and he did have some decent numbers from the 1984 season, and I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison of his stats right now. And you could see only started him 22 games as I had basically reached his innings limit. I don't go above, or at least I try not to go above innings pitched for a season, or really for that matter, games started. But you could see really solid numbers out of Fontenot, and he was really the anchor of the staff. I think one thing that really played into Ray Fontenot's success was he's a lefty pitcher who was very adept at getting right-handed hitters out in 1984. And following the actual lineups as I do for the opponents when I go through these seasons. Really, the only teams that I remember hitting around Ray Fontenot pretty good was number one, the Boston Red Sox, because they played lefties in their lineup. Against left-handed pitching, specifically guys like Wade Boggs and Mike Easler. That was one example of where Fontenot had some trouble because his card is definitely tilted towards getting right-handed batters out. But you can see just a terrific season out of Ray Fontenot. I'm also going to show you the numbers for Phil Niekro, as his numbers really checked out pretty much in line with what he did in the 1984 season. A little bit of a higher ERA in my strat season as he had in real life in 1984. I couple that a lot to the fact of 1984 Yankees were not a very efficient defensive team. You had threes at second base, shortstop, and when Toby Harrah plays third, he was a four, and the outfield defense also leaves a little bit to be desired. So, but for the most part, Phil Niekro's numbers checked out pretty good. And let me share with you a screenshot of all of the pitching stats. If you look across line number two, where Ron Guidry is at, you can see Guidry was a guy who really benefited from a lot of run support, as his ERA was close to 5. But he still finished with a winning record of 13 and 12. But in his 27 starts, he only had 12 quality starts. So there you see that. And speaking of Phil Niekro, he had 24 quality starts for me in my season. And as I spoke on, Ray Fontenot was the real anchor of the staff, as he goes 14 and 4 with a 2.69 ERA. If you look across line number 7, you see Dave Righetti was completely lights out, as I expected him to be, as he went 5 and 1 with under 2 ERA with 41 saves for my 1984 Strat-O-Matic season. And if you dig a little deeper into his stats, you could see he only allowed 78 hits and 24 walks in 107 innings pitched. I would say the pitcher who was the big disappointment in my season, considering that I really do, and I still like his card, was Jay Howell, the reliever. He had a little bit of a rough year, as he went 4 and 8 with a 4.39 ERA, and you could see his WHIP is not that great, as he allowed 156 base runners in 121 innings. So he had kind of a rough season. I could tell you a lot of that was just bad luck on the part of Jay Howell. I remember there were lots of games where I bring him in and it was just constant roll the hitters card, one right after the other. And so that was really something that played a lot into my record only being 89 and 73 because there were definitely a handful of games there where I would have a lead in the sixth or seventh inning and, just tough luck out of Jay Howell, there were lots of times I bring him in and I was just pounding hitters cards one right after the other. And next thing you know, he'd pitch one inning and allow three runs. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. So there you see the pitching stats. Now let me get into the hitting stats with you. First, I'm going to share with you the really one of the big standout performances that I had during the season. I'm going to share with you the numbers for Don Baylor. Now, Don Baylor only had 132 games. He was hurt a lot. He had a injury in a really tough spot on his card, so he spent a number of games not playing. But you could see in less than 400 at bats, he had 23 home runs and 81 RBIs and 64 walks. So Don Baylor was really very, very productive. And I would say at best, Don Baylor's card was just average for 1984. But this was just one of those deals where I just rolled really well for him. That happens sometimes. I refer you back to my 1980 season that I played with the New York Yankees. And it seemed like Bobby Brown was that guy on the 1980 Yankees who I just had the magical touch rolling his card and rolling it well, where he really overperformed to his card. So Don Baylor, definitely a big season. Now let me show you the two big guns in the Yankees lineup. First, let me go over show you the numbers that I got out of Don Mattingly. Mattingly's numbers come out pretty similar to what he did in that 1984 season, just 5 points under his eventual batting champion number of 343. He hit 338 for me. You can see his power numbers were a little bit down as he was 6 home runs down in the season that I played. I contribute that a lot to the fact that the ballpark effect home run in Yankee Stadium, according to Strat-O-Matic, for the 1984 season for a left-handed batter on a D20 was only a 1 to 10. There's been other years, like, for example, I take you back to my 1980 season playing for the New York Yankees, where a home run on a D20 for a left-handed bat was 1 to 18. But for 1984, it was only 1 to 10. So I remember losing a couple of home runs that way. Also, another thing which hurt the offense in general, the ballpark effect singles in Yankee Stadium for 1984 on the D20 were only 1 to 5 both ways for left-handed hitters and right-handed hitters. So, in fact, that also works both ways because it obviously helped my pitching numbers as well. But Yankee Stadium was not a very hitter-friendly ballpark, according to Strat-O-Matic in 1984. You can see the doubles were way up. Mattingly had a very nice, handy stand-up double on his card in the one column, which was a very common role. And you can see his RBIs were a little bit up and his runs scored were way up. That is a big contribution from Dave Winfield and Don Baylor hitting right behind him. But there you see Mattingly's numbers. Now I'm going to show you Dave Winfield's numbers. You can see his batting average was considerably down from what he did in 1984, but you can see his RBIs were way up. I was actually surprised that Winfield did not hit for a little bit of a higher average. In fact, I thought going into the season and during the early part of the season that Winfield would actually hit for a higher average than Mattingly because I like Winfield's card from the standpoint of he has a nice string of walks on his card. There were times during the season where lots of games, Winfield wouldn't go 0 for 4 in a game like you would see Mattingly do every now and then. Every now and then, Winfield would go 0 for 2 with 2 walks or 0 for 3 with a walk. Or instead of going 1 for 4, he would go 1 for 3 with a walk. But Winfield slumped a little bit as the season started to wind down. Also, playing all these games by myself, I do manage for the other team as well. And there were lots of times where there would be a situation where I would have Winfield up and I would just say, okay, I'm just going to walk him and pitch to Baylor because I got better chance of getting Don Baylor out. But you can see Winfield's power numbers came out pretty much in line, almost the same amount of home runs. Most of those home runs came on the road, of course, as the ballpark effect home run in Yankee Stadium for 1984 for a right-handed hitter was just a one. So not much of a chance of the ball going out there. But you can see very good RBI numbers. His runs scored were a little bit down compared to what he did in real life in 1984. I contribute that a lot to the fact that Don Baylor was hurt a lot because when Don Baylor was hurt, there was just not a lot of production in the bottom of this order. In fact, now let me share with you the full results for the batting stats as I share with you a screenshot. You can see Willie Randolph, as always, had a very solid season. He's on line number 2. However, he spent a little time on the injury list as he only played 139 games, but you can see 77 walks, 78 runs scored in 139 games are very solid numbers. But if you look at guys like Steve Kemp on line 7, Butch Weiniger on line 8, Bobby Meacham on line 10, Toby Harrer, and then you just go down the list from there. You can see there just really wasn't much production in the bottom of this order whatsoever. It was very hard for this team to either come back in a game or, for that matter, win a game if it wasn't the top 4 or 5 guys in the lineup doing damage. And for the most part, my lineups were basically Randolph, Griffey, Mattingly, Winfield, Baylor. That was pretty much the lineup that I would go with most of the time when Ken Griffey was not hurt, because as you see on line 2, Ken Griffey only played in 111 games as he too had a injury in a tough spot on his card. But there just really wasn't any production out of the bottom of this order whatsoever. Mike Pagliarulo, he did have some nice power on his card, but not a lot of on base chances. So didn't get much out of my third base. I wouldn't call it a platoon because it was more Toby Harrer, and then Toby Harrer got hurt around Memorial Day, so I inserted Mike Pagliarulo into the lineup, and then from there I would just kind of platoon them in a way. So I got no production out of there, no production out of shortstop between Bobby Meacham and Andre Robertson. So that's how the offense was looking for the 1984 New York Yankees. A couple of teams who I beat up on during the season. You see, I went 9-4 against the Rangers, who were just absolutely miserable in 1984. That was just not a good team at all. And the Milwaukee Brewers were not very good at all either, as I went 8-5 against them. But as expected, I'm going to show you results against some American League East opponents right now. I'm going to share with you the records that I had against the Tigers, Blue Jays, and Red Sox, and you see those records right there. The Yankees were just no match for the 1984 Tigers. There was just no way on an average day this 84 Yankee team can match up with the 1984 Tigers. The 84 Tigers just had too much pitching, and it was just not a good matchup for the 84 Yanks. And against the Blue Jays and Red Sox, also had losing records. I was actually surprised when I went back and looked it up that I finished that well against the Red Sox. I actually thought it was more like 5-8 or 4-9 against the 84 Red Sox. So again, those are my results for the 1984 Strat-O-Matic season that I played with the New York Yankees. My final record comes out to a record of not a terrible record. I finished 16 games over 500 with an 89 and 73 record. So I do win 2 more games than the actual 1984 New York Yankees. And hopefully, sometime soon, Strat-O-Matic will do a re-release of the 1985 season. Because I could tell you, I was only like 12 years old in 1985, and it still burns me to this day that the 85 Yanks did not beat out the Blue Jays in that American League East race. It still bothers me that that Yankee team that won 97 games was not in the postseason and got beat out by the Blue Jays, because to me that was really one of the most enjoyable seasons I've had to date as a lifelong Yankee fan, was that 1985 season when Ricky Henderson had a tremendous year, and Don Mattingly won the MVP, and Ron Guidry had a Cy Young caliber year. That was just a terrific team that they had in 1985, and I do wish Strat-O-Matic would do a re-release of the 1985 season because I'd like to take a crack at beating out the 1985 Blue Jays. So those are my results on the 1984 Yankees Strat-O-Matic season. I thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you all down the road.